All right, we're back for episode 4 of the third season of Picard as the crew has to deal with the crisis that was left over from last week's episode. But we also have a whole bunch of other stuff happening on the ship as the crisis is happening. So this is going to be one of those episodes that typically I would look at and be like, when you listen to me talk about it from the previous episode, it's like, I'm not a huge fan of like that something's wrong with the ship. Like that happens so many times in all the various versions of Star Trek, whether you're talking Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I will say that this episode is much better than the previous episode because the stakes are a lot higher and they introduced some new plot elements here, which are leading towards the overarching story for this final season, which kind of ramp the story up a little bit, which I really appreciate. So we're going to be diving into the show notes and going through this morning, but as always, if you're a returning viewer, you already know this. I don't do spoiler free. So if you need to watch the episode first, before you watch my video, go away, come back, listen to me then. But if you've already seen it, you're good to go. We're going to be diving in. 3, 2, 1, that kind of stuff. I'll give you guys a couple seconds while I get my show notes open. So you got plenty of time to walk away. And we're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2. So we start this episode off with the ship floating in the middle of a nebula. You know, it's sinking down. Ship's dying. All systems are in critical. They estimate they've got about 4 hours till they're crushed with a gravity well. And, everybody's panicking. Riker can't figure out what they're going to do, so it's basically just shut everything down other than life support, and we'll just, gather in the common areas, and maybe we'll find a solution, but it's pretty much hopeless at this point. And he actually goes and apologizes to Picard and gives him a speech about how, when he buried his son, he felt this empty sadness, this infinite emptiness. And the reason that he took this mission was because he says he no longer feels anything. And his relationship with Deanna is deteriorating because of that, because she can feel everything, and him being in this torturous state of mind where he can't feel anything anymore. He's basically running from emptiness only to find it out here in the vastness of space again. And he tells Picard, this is the end. And if I were you, I'd take the next few hours to get to know your son because that's something that he didn't have enough time to do. So it's a very poignant message here from Riker to Picard about the importance of that family relationship. So the writers are, pushing that, which is a cool thing to do. It's good. It's good. It's good script writing here. We're back to 7 of 9. She's hunting the Changeling and finds the body of the original engineer who the Changeling took over. Now, Riker actually wants her to keep this quiet and tells her that working on this without being reinstated means that she can do it off the books and she's not going to have to do things by regulations and everyone's going to not suspect her. So she goes and reports to Shaw, which is awesome. She's like, something's bigger is happening here. As much as it pains me, we have a personnel problem and no one knows this shit better than you. And it's just a nice kind of. She has grudging respect for Shaw, and he kind of has grudging respect for her too, even though he is kind of a prick sometimes. Um, we get this scene with Riker starting to record a private message for Deanna, but he can't figure out the words. Picard takes Jack to this holodeck bar and wants to know why Jack didn't want to get to know him, and the kid just starts rambling and doesn't want to open up. And there's this scene here as well, which I didn't understand until the very end of the episode. We get these. There's a couple of flashback sequences where Picard is remembering a bar like this, maybe even the same bar, but from years previously, not on the holodeck, when he was at a dinner and these Starfleet cadets came up and asked him a bunch of questions, and he was answering them. And this does play into how the scene unfolds at the end. It's a couple of moments throughout the show where he's just having these flashbacks. And I promise we'll get back to it. So. Um, this then pans to Shaw admitting to Seven that he may have been wrong about her as they talk about the changeling and then saying, and that's how you know I'm the real Shaw because I would never have said a nice thing like that to you. But he does reveal he knows more about the changelings than Seven does. And he's like, look, they typically rest in a pot. You need to find the pot. If you can find the pot, we can find the residue, and we can track it on the ship. So she goes off in pursuit of that. Meanwhile, we get Vedic coming out of the nebula and reporting into her superior. And the way she does it is by cutting off her hand. She's a changeling, apparently. And then a face appears from the gooey muck and says, report. So she has a boss. The voice wants her to pursue. She's like, it's suicide to pursue. And he's like, it's also suicide not to pursue. You will obtain and deliver the asset. All else is expendable. Your ship, your people, and you. Which made me go, is this not the same creature as her? Because it says your ship, your people, and you. And the face that it gave was different. So I don't know if that's the form of the creature. I don't know, but this is one of those things where we're ramping up the storyline a little bit more because we're getting a reveal now of, or at least a partial reveal of the other bad guy. The guy that's in charge of Vatic. Very interesting thing here. Um, Back to the holodeck where Picard and Jack are talking, and now we have young Starfleet officers joining them in the holodeck as well because it's a distressing time, and that's what the holodeck is for. It's for distressing times to ease people's minds. And this is reminiscent of the conversation that he was having in his past when he was remembering being in a bar having the cadets come in and talk as well. Meanwhile, Shaw comes to the bar and recounts the tale of when there was these 40 Federation ships that were lost in a battle against Picard when Picard was Locutus, and that's why he hates him and all those lives lost. We also find the Goo Man chasing Seven. And there's a little bit of a shootout in the hallway. He shoots the pot, which I think means he can't regen anymore. Um, he kills an officer, gets away. Then Beverly's here. She's noticed a pattern, increasing intensity of the waves hitting their ship, so it's a countdown. And she started tracking. It's like contractions, which she suspects the birth of something is happening. And once that happens, it's going to be all over us because they're flying in the amniotic fluid here. And Jack's like, we got waves when we got power when the waves hit, right? We could hitch a ride out of here, says Picard, and they convince Riker, we could surf the waves on the way out. But in order to do this, they actually need an old grease monkey who knows the ship's engineering core from 20 years before. And guess what? Shaw. So they've got to get Shaw to come work with them. And you get the friendship that's starting to come out of a time of crisis. So Shaw is actually going to work with them. And as they're happening, it's immediately suspicious. We knew what it was right away. But LaForge's daughter comes in, and as Shaw is working, and she's like, "Oh, I'm here to help." And Seven of Mine steps up with the phaser pistol, and she's like, "I told Riker not to send anyone." And the changeling's like, "But it's me, it's me, Commander." And she's like, "Commander what?" And she's like, "Commander Hanson." And she shoots her right then because LaForge's daughter never calls her Commander Hanson. She literally said, I think it was at the end of episode. Was it the end of last episode? It was in the last episode or the beginning of this episode. She's like, "You'll always be Commander Seven to me," because she shows her respect. So she knew it was the Changeling. And I'm not sure if she actually killed the Changeling here because the body's still there, but is it dead, or is it just now incapacitated because it can't regen? I don't remember. It's been a while since since I've watched Deep Space Nine, and I can't remember if you can kill a Changeling with a phaser. Can't remember. Anyway, they ride the wave out and they haul this massive asteroid as they're on the way out, and then they chuck it at Vadic's ship on their way out, which knocks Vadic's ship off into, space as they make their escape. Vadic's panicked now because she realizes she's failed. Then we get this nice scene of watching all these space babies be born from the nebula. So it was a cool moment of like, especially on the heels of this most last recent episode of The Mandalorian when we got, the space babies in hyperspace. It's cool to see space babies, man. It gives us a sense that the universe is much larger than us. And we're back here at this scene where Picard was remembering talking to cadets many years ago when he was eating, and there's a kid at the bar with a hat on that asks him if he had a life outside of Starfleet, a real family. And he's like, "Starfleet's the only family I've ever needed." And that's at the moment we realize, it's Jack. We see him with a hat on, but this is the moment when Jack realized that he never wanted to know Picard because Picard was like, "I don't need a family. Starfleet's my family." So this is just something from many, many years ago that's giving us some more insight into who Jack's character is. We then get Riker reconnecting with Deanna over the comms, apologizing for his state. And then we get Jack looking in the mirror. And then he starts having like visions. There's something in the mirror behind him, some sort of weird red orange something, energy pattern, something. We hear a voice saying, "Fight, find me." And then together soon, there's visions of explosions and a red door, and he's having visions and he's hitting his head and he's trying to get it out of his head. So something's happening here. So for me, that's one of the reasons I thought this episode was a really good episode, much better than the previous episode. I've loved them all. First two were definitely good. Third one was a little slow. This fourth episode is back to being a 10 out of 10 for me because we're getting story elements that push it forward and mystery. And I like mystery because I want these mysteries to be unfolded. And we also have a reveal of another Next Generation character because we had Deanna this time. Although she was just on the holo call, um, she was here. So I think I think the only one we haven't seen yet from Next Generation is Data. So I don't know how that's going to play in it. Anyway, great episode. Loved it. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. If you like this, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update as I do this review and all the other reviews and other things that I do here on YouTube. Check out all the other playlists. Support if you can. Super chats, super stickers, memberships, Patreon page, and beyond. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and happy viewing.